Hello my friends, soapsters, welcome back. In today's soap I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a hybrid-y Valentine's-y, styly, soapy thing that you may have seen on some of the other channels, and it was a soap challenge club thing that they were doing, and it is watercolour. But what they were doing is they were doing in a mould, they were doing a, what's the word I'm looking for, gradient from one colour into another. And that's great and all, but my thinking was, can I do it with a thin lines pour into here, allow that to set up, and then use that thin lines pour as a watercolour-ish pour with a bit of smearage for a Valentine's soap. Now I'm going to fragrance it with Mermaid Kisses. Now looking at the colour of it, I think it may discolour. So what I've got is actually this little baby here, which is titanium dioxide mixed with a little bit of oil, and to get a nice smooth titanium dioxide, I heat the oil up a little bit that I'm using, and it is an oil dispersible titanium dioxide. So I heat the oil up, put it in, use my frappe mixer to really get it going, and then that cools down and I have a very nicely mixed titanium dioxide. Hopefully we'll get no streaking with that. So I'm going to take care of the possible discoloration with that. I don't know whether this is going to accelerate, so we might have to change directions quite quickly, and then we'll crack on with it. Now in here I have got lard, which is the main constituent. Now when you do a slow trace batter, you would normally have, say, lard, coconut oil, avocado oil and castor oil. So that's what I've got in here. I have got a couple of butters in here as well. Now butters do tend to speed trace up a little bit. I'm soaping very cool, so I'm right down at like 28 degrees there, 25 degrees. So I'm soaping very, very cool. I shouldn't get a false trace out of that, but you never know. So I'm going to see whether we get a false trace out of that one. So we'll see how this all goes. So I'm going to pour my lye in. Okay. Now the great thing with lye is if you're stirring it by hand, it will always take a lot less time to come to trace than if you're using a stick blender. But you can see that's totally not together. So we bring our stick blender in, pop it in, give it a bounce to try and get rid of any of the air that might be caught in there, and then we're going to give this a quick stir. Now I've purposefully not got that to emulsion because I wanted you to see in here, hopefully, that that's going to start. Can you just see how it's just starting to break apart on the bell? I mean, it's close, it's very, very close, but it's not quite there, and you should be able to see, hopefully, on the stick blender itself how it's just starting to break apart. That's how you know you haven't quite made it to trace. But this is not far. It's a small amount of soap, it's not going to take long. We're just trying to keep this at a nice fluid batter. And I think we've got our trace, or our emulsion at the very least there. And if you have a look at that one now, you should be able to see that it's actually formed a really nice solid coating on that stick blender, on the bell of the stick blender. So I'm going to do kind of average measuring of our combined bits. So I'm going to go for about 150 mils of each one of these, which will give me enough for some white. And that looks like it's going to stay nice and fluid. So 150 mils in each one of these. Now there will be people that say, oh, you're doing it in glass. These are Pyrex. They are designed for acids and alkalis, as they are scientific beakers. Okay, and there we go. So we're going to move from our lightest to our darkest. Okay, so I'm going to put our white into there and give ourselves a really nice white. And then each one of these I'm going to put a little touch of white as well. And we've got a gold here. Now gold, when it hits soap batter, will actually become kind of like a lovely sand colour. So as I'm going with like a kind of beachy theme, I thought that's probably going to be the best choice there. And let's add a little bit more of that gold just to boost the sand colour. And these are only supposed to be subtle. A little bit more can go in there. So this is really kind of a testing batch. We're just seeing what we get from it. So there we go. We've got this kind of like peachy, sandy, orangey colour. That's fine. It will lighten up as well. So that's that one. And you can see we've still got some really nice fluidity going on. Next one, I've got this beautiful kind of green blue, tealy, and we are going to pop that all into that one. So you can see how these are just staying really nice and fluid. Normally I would do these without the white in them, but for the purposes of this, I think because it's kind of a watercolour style, we want to go with something that's a little more pastel. And our final one here, we have a dark blue. It's actually called denim. So that one there. And yes, I do have complete OCD when it comes to colours of spatulas versus the colour that I'm putting in. And we're going to put a lot more of that in because I want that to have a blueness to it as opposed to a teal. So we've got some blue there, but I think what we're going to do is just add batter into there. And there we go. So we've got a nice pastel blue, we've got a nice kind of pastel green, we've got this lovely pastel one here, and we've got this white. Now normally you would do a gradient pour in your mould by pouring along the side with here, pouring a bit here, pouring a bit here, pouring a bit here. But I want to get some really nice kind of like thin striations running through this as a thin lines pour. And then what we're going to do is scoop it out once it thickens a little bit, pop it into our mould, and then pop our heart embed in. So we've got a really beautiful heart embed here. And we're then going to add some of these onto the top as well. So we need a second jug, which I've got here. And then the idea is that you want to pour from a point around it in the order that you want them to come out in, backwards. So if you want the sand to come out first, that has to be the last one poured in. And what I love about this pour, it's wonderful, because what you do is you basically pour down one side of the jug, then and a little bit of the white. And the idea is that you want this to kind of hit the top and then start floating. So go very gently and just allow it to kind of float. The harder you pour this down, the more that is going to just kind of sit. Now you can see here that I'm actually pouring it down the side of the jug. If you want this to come out one colour after the other, you actually want to pour it from the jug nozzle to jug nozzle. But for this one, I didn't really worry too much about that one. But you'll see on the last pour here, I actually just move the jug around so it's going to kind of come out on the spout. Really easy pour now. We'll make sure this is just in here for you. And single pour down the edge, and all you do is... So I'm pouring this down the edge of this mould, and I did transfer moulds because I wanted a little bit more room to be able to move this batter around. So the speed that you actually move backwards and forwards on this pour denotes how many kind of striations you get. Now, for this particular pour, it's not going to matter too much because I'm going to pull this out and put it into another mould, and we're going to get all of that kind of mixing together. But if you're going to do this just as a straight thin lines pour, the faster you go, the thinner the lines you get, and the more kind of striations you get through it. So this is a variation on a beach theme. We're just pouring backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. Now you always want to pour on the same side if you want to get a really nice kind of graduation. But what you can do is you could flip this mould around halfway through and continue pouring on the other side and get some really interesting kind of textures and movement going on within it. It just depends on what really you're looking to get out of this particular pour. So that is that pour, and then you very gently want to just allow it to kind of come and settle. Now this is going to be disturbed when we come back to it once it's all set up. I'm going to pop that down there. And let's leave that for half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, come back and check on it in half an hour, see what we've got, and then we can use all of the rest of this as part of our design, and nothing is really going to go to waste. So I'll join you back in a moment. We are back. Right, now this is a prime example of why you need to be around with soap. You just need to check that everything is going right, because went downstairs, we sorted a few bits out, came back, and this has now reached the point where we can start doing stuff with it. It's holding its own weight and shape, so we are good to go. But I'm glad I came back and checked on that because it was probably less than 10 minutes. So what we're going to do is we're now going to use our mould here to transfer this into here, into kind of like streaky bits, and give ourselves a real watercolory texture all over the place. So we'll see how this goes. So what I'm going to do, I've got a lovely little kind of spatula here, and we're going to dive into this one. Now you can see here, this little spatula is not really doing the job for me. And this is the first time I've really done this technique. And again, I like to show where things may not be going quite right for me. And at this point, I'm like, no, this is going to take way too long. And I'm going to transfer to a spatula to get a little bit more of it across and a bit more smearage. And I think this is just going to work better. So you can see I'm just taking a nice big dollop out and then going for another big dollop from a different section and just really putting this in. And then we're going to get to a certain point, bang it down on the table just to make sure that we've got some nice variation going on there, and continue doing that with everything, including the stuff that's in the jugs, and everything is going to go into this little green mould along with my embed. So we're just keeping it quite simple. Get them in, a little bit of smear, absolutely fine. And what we'll do is come into this one, we'll just set up a little bit more, put them in there, because we don't want these colours to be all kind of solid, but we do want to kind of use as much of this as we can. There, scraping out our white. Now for me, I think the key here is that you want the batter to be soft enough to mould, so you're not going to get any big voids in here, but solid enough to hold the shape that you want it to have. So that's working really nicely for me. I want to take my heart now. I'm going to pop that now. I cut this so that it is quite tight in there. So you can see that it kind of popped out, and I just want to kind of get that in place. Like that. And then rest of that in there. Lovely. And I just want to give my hands a quick wipe. And now all that's left is to give this a little clean up. This little clean up. And then, final little job is I've cut out some little shapes there, and all I want to do is pop these onto the top. I like to do it so that they are kind of randomly placed. And if anyone is interested, these are horticultural tweezers that are used for doing terrariums and stuff like that. And so we've got a few little gaps, so what I'm going to do is kind of where we have little bits like that, in that goes, push it into, in there, there. We'll just make sure that they're all just really nicely sunk in. Now, normally you would want to cover and C-pop a soap, but there's a reason you don't want to cover and C-pop this particular soap. I'm just going to give it a quick mist. And the reasons for that are, number one, it's got white in it, and if you try and C-pop a white soap, it will go creamy, and we want to keep some of that lightness in there. The second thing is our little hearts here, I don't know if you can see that, but they are made from a homemade melt and pour Okay, if you were to pop that in and try and pop it, these will melt and they'll just cover the surface in a really strange, bizarre texture, and the hearts will be lost forever. So we're just going to pop those in like that, and we're going to leave that as it is. What I will do, just to avoid a little bit of soda ash, is take a piece of cardboard with a slit in it and tent it so nothing goes into that, and we'll see you tomorrow. Let's look under here. Look at that. We've got our beautiful hearts in the top there. Now, this was a homemade melt and pour soap that I'm using for the hearts, and some of the sugar is just kind of crystallized a little bit on the top there. So that's why that's a little bit crystally there. Now, I struggled to get this one out. It's been a few days since this is actually set up. So let's just see if I can squeeze this one out of here. Come on. Look, it's coming. I give it another little push here. And again, we're just going to get this out of the mold to give this a cut. But it's been a few days and it's actually set up really, really nicely. So that is our design just there. Look at that. So we're going to go right down to the end, pull out. This is fully saponified. I'm only using one glove because I've got rather deep fingerprints. I don't want to add too many fingerprints to this. A little push on the bottom, air is releasing it, and we can pull this out. Now look at those beautiful colours on the side, how they've all kind of like come together. That's a little bit of black soap that was left in the mould. So we've got all these beautiful colours going on. We've got our heart in the middle there. That's just looking really, really lovely. So let's bring in our cutter here. A little bit of a dirty cutter. I mean, this has seen some work, this one. If anyone has a cutter out there they want to give me, because this one has just been a workhorse. So because of the melt and pour, I'm a bit like, is this going to go through? So we're going to take it nice and slowly and gently. We're not going to overforce it. You really shouldn't cut melt and pour with a wire because this is such a small amount. I'm going to give it a very, very good college try. I'm just supporting the wire there and we're going very slowly through it, and it's gone through there, so we can just follow that down. And let's take a look at the inside of our soap. And there we go. So you can see all those beautiful thin lines are coming through. It probably could have been a little bit more smushed and mushed through, but I really kind of quite like that. It's just very subtle, very gentle. The pink of the heart stands out so much against the background. I might have gone with a different colour or a slightly kind of lighter pink, but it's what I had to hand and we're going to kind of go with it. So guys, if you've really enjoyed this video, please give it a like, and why not think about subscribing to the channel. If you do subscribe, click the bell icon to get notified when a new video is uploaded. It really does help me make new videos every week for all of you guys to see. And until next time, have a great week and I'll see you soon. Bye bye.